Vinay Chatlani, welcome to the store. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Pleasure.
Let's begin with something around SOCH that you've said in the recent past about your, transformation to omnichannel. And you've admitted that you've been a little slow to get onto the online commerce game, but you've more than made up for it in the past year. And you're
Yeah.
talking about end-to-end digital transformation, not just front-end sales. And there are several tools that you've deployed, including a business intelligence tool, as well as a sourcing buying solution. So,
Right.
what are these results that you're seeing now from some of these transformations that you've put in place?
Right. So, if we could start with BI Retail, which is our BI tool. I think what we've managed to do over the last year is get as much data from different sources into one place. We're actually exploring master data management as a platform to kind of host it, but as of now, it's still coming into a server, and you're able to make better inferences when you have multiple data sources, right? So I would like to see if my attendance has any correlation with my sales, and when the managers are in stores and managers are not in stores. So I think the BI tool basically, on it allows for logic and algorithms that you wouldn't normally be able to just crunch out in Excel. So you have multiple layers of logic and filters, and so the output is a lot more actionable. So you get a lot more actionable insights, and we also look at it in a few parts. I don't think everything in terms of information that comes out to us should be in a form of a report, right? So we look at reports, we look at dashboards, and we look at exception reports quite often now. And it's always those outliers and those thresholds and things where if you're intimated, real time, then you're able to make changes fairly quick. And and the analytics, which also flows into the planning tool. So that obviously it allows for you to have a better sense of getting, the right product at the right store at the right time. It allows for better sell-through, better rate of sales, and also allows you to take quick calls on interstore transfers or pullbacks or consolidation. That generally leads also to reduction of discounting at the end of the year. So it helps the top line, and it also helps the bottom line in that way. And with the BI tool, we also have a visualization aspect of it. So because at the end of the day, ethnic wear, fashion, you can capture as many attributes as you want. There's still going to be elements of the product that you would ideally like to see. So a lot of my reports and dashboards have the images, but specifically when a season is launching, we want to be able to see what the assortment is going to look like. And that helps for my operations team, it helps my marketing team, it helps my visual merchandising team, and e-com specifically, because online, while you may want to sell by category, you also want to make it interesting and be able to curate collections, and this curation often now is done by using the right filters and looking at the products, and then just tagging them, and that becomes your curation. So you can churn out different stories and concepts a lot more. So that is something that we're really looking forward to, because right now it's a manual process as to filtering it, but with the new site that's coming up, that should feed right into it. Also allows us to tag products with matching bottoms or the butters and things like that. So it also enables suggestions and recommendations of what to wear or buy with it. And obviously that's cross-selling, upselling. And this is something that we are going to have as a feature in the stores as well. So it's not just on e-com. When you come to the store, if you're looking to do a mix and match, a lot of it will be driven by the app. A lot of it will be driven even by the customer service team, because they are also going to have a slightly different version of the store app. And that's going to allow them to do a bunch of other things as well. So so the considerable amount, I think, basically, when we look at digitalization, we want to take the simpler stuff, which is going to make the biggest difference. So just as an example, in the office, we're moving away from email and WhatsApp and moving towards project management tool and collaboration tool. And it helps with productivity, it helps with transparency, clarity, and if the tools are out there, why wouldn't you use them?
Right. I will be moving on to some of the specific innovations that you're bringing to the store, but let's look at ethnic wear as a category itself, and the inventory challenges that it faces typically. So it's a very seasonal category. So you'll have very high sales months or periods like festive seasons or wedding seasons, and relatively lower numbers in other periods of the year. Are you doing anything with the business model to kind of build, sales traction through the year with other ranges, with our, for instance, everyday wear or work wear, things like that? Can you tell us a little bit more about how the model itself may be changing for you?
Right. So I think SOCH is associated with evening and occasion wear primarily, but we actually do have a considerable collection of casual and simple stuff that can pass as workwear. When it comes to seasonality, yes, festive periods are the spurts. But then you also have marriage season. Then you have your two end of season sales, and our end of season sale is slightly different from most people. It's not predominantly a liquidation channel. We actually have a lot of fresh merchandise coming in. So there are a few lull months, generally Feb, March a little bit, and then August and September sometimes. But we do 8 to 10 drops in a year. So there's constantly new stuff, and we're keeping depths lower. So I'm not even getting styles that are available across the chain. At most it's available in 50% of my stores, if not 25%. And when you do that, you're able to shuffle merchandise, you're able to keep things fresh. The number of options that you will then expose to e-commerce via omnichannel, just gets that much larger. And more than anything, I think the customer feels like, stuff's coming, stuff's going. And so it's not a, let's wait for the sale and then pick up, right? Because it's probably not going to be there. So that's basically how we try and keep the traction on for the year, but also looking at some collaborations and tie-ups, which again should bring some attention to the brand during that time.
Right. So, let's talk about the SOCH in-store app, which promises to be very differentiated and much beyond just an e-commerce site on a tab. Can you tell us about some of the key value additions or differentials that this application will bring for customer experience?
Yeah. So historically, SOCH would do a lot of revenue contribution from lookbooks that we had at the store. And, we're still continuing that in some form, but moving to digital as much as possible. So the store app, a lot of my consumers are used to coming in and looking at the best styles or curated styles and things like that. So as far as discovery is concerned, which is what most brands will have in the store, but we are trying to have it link wherever possible with the consumer if they have the brand app downloaded as well. So when they do come to the store using IoT devices and things like that, they could essentially use their smartphone to get the store app experience. They could also do things like soft block products. Let's say I'm coming to the store. I just browse through the inventory that's at the store. I can filter it any way I want, and we'll block it for you for a certain amount of time. So it makes it that much quicker for the consumer as well. And on the store app, we're looking at a lot of video content. We're looking at voiceovers as well. Essentially, we want to make the store with the apps and some innovative fixturing and things like that. We want to make it as friendly to self-service as possible, but at the same time, work on customer service. So for the consumers that like that individual attention, it's there. And for those that think that's a little intrusive, it's a lot easier to shop. So there will be a few other things that would also allow us to get our social media feed onto the apps. We also do a lot of video content in general. I think we've had LED screens in our stores for at least 7 years now. So we've had that time to kind of see what works, individual product videos versus collection videos, putting offers and stories out there. And, this will also translate onto the app as well.
Right. Right. I know personalization is a key area of focus for you, especially also at the store, and lots of moves being made there. Let me just take you through the entire thinking and approach that you're doing at SOCH for this. Of course, data underpins any personalization effort that you're going to do. But of course, not just any data, the data that tells a story, about a customer's habits and also possible future habits, right? How are you putting in a data pipeline to gather these insights, information consistently and effortlessly? How are you doing that?
So I think when it comes to our space, we have over 8 categories of products in our stores, and they range from tunics all the way to heavy Gawra cholis and lehengas. So even with loyal consumers, they visit us for different things, with different need states. So you may have, 15, 20 transactions with the consumer, and it's still not really giving you a real trend on what that person is leaning towards, right? And that it's more complicated because I'm selling that much more in terms of width and categories. So while getting that data is important, I think in terms of looking at it for trends and forecasts and things like that, you may have to look at it on an aggregated level. But if you're talking about personalization and being able to understand that end consumer, you need to get a lot of information from the consumer. And that could be following what they're doing on social. It could be our customer service team reaching out to them after sales and things like that. And we are looking at collection of their preferences and things like that through the new site and through the app. It's just you have to make it um, a place where the consumer's happy to give this information, because after you give it to them, after they give it to you, what you give back to them in terms of curated collections, curated offers, and things like that, they see a value add in it. So one, I think the process of gathering the information has to be as interactive and immersive as possible. It can't be like a survey kind of, I'll ask you 100 questions. And then what you push out to them, it has to be relevant enough, and at the same time, the frequency is important because you don't want to seem too intrusive.
Right.
So that's essentially how we look at putting it on a consumer level together.
Right. So one of the challenges today is that even data has a very short shelf life now. It's a
Yeah.
very unpredictable world, and consumer trends and fashion trends both are changing very rapidly and often sometimes without warning, right? So it is very important that the recency of the data itself is also very important. So
Yeah.
how do you stay on your toes and gather the most recent insights that can be actioned?
Well, on a product level, we have an advantage because we do have that many drops in a year. So I'm closer to the drop when it comes to deciding, what to put out there, and therefore my design can be closer to what's in trend. And that's a huge benefit because it also keeps your stock lean, and it keeps your stock, up to date. So data being real time is also important, in terms of seeing what's moving and what's not. A lot of times we see, the same styles that do well in certain stores and don't do well in other stores. So, you don't want to just wait it out and then discount it because it's taking up space, and that's lost opportunity. And it's also going to get discounted much more. And therefore, if you're going to move things around, and a lot of trends pop up, especially about regional tastes. And there is a general sense of what sells in certain regions, but a lot of times when it's fashion and it's something new, you need to be on your toes on that. So from that perspective, recent data is very important.
Right. So just staying with the personalization, for many industries, it's enough to collect, good data and then build smart algorithms. A lot of fashion retail also works like that. But fashion retail is kind of different because, the sense of style in fashion is incredibly intimate for some consumers. There's an individual's approach to style and the nuances that everyone has, about the choices of colors, texture, silhouettes, everything else. And some of that may not be, something that machine intelligence could be good with. And that's perhaps where you need a human component, which is why you have stylists and things like that.
Right.
So as, this digitalization becomes more and more prolific across fashion, what do you think is going to be the role of the human component in fashion retail going forward?
Well, I, I think all things surrounding design, whether that's product design, store design, packaging design, um, things surrounding things that are a lot more creative in nature. So your campaigns, your imagery, and things like that. You can get some information out there in terms of what works for who, but at the end of the day, you can't just say, "Hey, we just do it like these guys, and it's going to give us the same result." So that's when the human element is really important. So analysis of what happens post us implementing something is where we rely on data a lot. But like you said, fashion changes so much. So A lot of times my data, even from the last season, is relevant only to a certain extent.
Sure.
Because if you have decided to change your range completely, then a lot of times that's a gut feel, and that's a bet that you have to take.
Sure.
So yeah, so I don't see that component going away anytime soon.
Right. Okay, let's get back to this specific innovations that you're doing at SOCH, including live commerce and content driven by NFC technology and also virtual shopping. Can you give us a little bit of insight on exactly what these innovations will play out as, and how much do you expect them to convert in terms, adding to the top lines?
Right. So I think things like virtual sales and live commerce, it's just going where the consumer is going. If you look at how large it's become in China, for example, I think it's going to move to that direction fairly quickly, and that's why we want to get uh, into understanding, the live sales and the video content aspect of it, and what works and doesn't. So there's a lot of platforms out there. There's a lot of solutions. It's just about, trying different things out, and just allowing for the consumer to be able to discover the brand in the way that they want to, right? It could be visiting the store. It could be going online. It could be a mix of both, so the NFC tags are going to be, probably used for the consumer being able to see details about the product. It could be a video, it could be a voiceover, and that may be in the trial rooms, it may be on the large screens in the stores, it may be on their phones as well. So, so, so IoT and NFC, we're looking at IoT even from the staff app perspective, so that, if a consumer is asking for a certain size, they just scan the barcode, and if their size is in the store, it will actually light up the shelf or the storage area where the style is kept. So a lot like warehousing, where they have, click to light kind of solutions. And if it's not there, the customer gets to know immediately. It's not like I'm going to the back room, coming back. And if it's available close by, I can even tell you how quickly I can get it to you based on the distance. Right? So I think it just improves the shopping experience. And for the most part, that's what we want any of these innovations to do, right? We don't want it to be a novelty thing. We don't want it to be gimmicky. It should add value. It should save time. It should improve revenues. It should make the consumer happy. That's how we're looking at these things.
Right. Let's talk about a little bit about the retail channels. You've said that a rising focus on marketplaces is delivering very good results for SOCH, and you've had very impressive full price sales.
Yeah.
In fact, you're now, in part because of that, you're also predicting a 10x revenue jump in this fiscal compared to FY19,
Yeah.
right? But do you think a marketplace experience delivers the same, 360-degree full seamless brand experience that your own omni-channel model perhaps could do better?
It's not going to, because it is a marketplace, and therefore they're presenting you with a much larger collection. You do have opportunities to have brand pages on the marketplaces, and that's where you can put your experience into it. The imagery that you put out there helps connect to the brand experience. But over and above that, there's only that much you can do on the marketplaces. But with that said, you're reaching out to so many more people, and that awareness and that customer acquisition is something that is underestimated a lot. We are looking at such a high multiple, also because we had a very low base to begin with. We would primarily look at e-commerce as liquidation, and because of our churns and our end of season sales, we didn't need to liquidate that much. It's only now where consumer behavior itself has changed. So they're willing to buy online. They're willing to buy expensive pieces online, and so you need to be there. But from a long-term perspective, your captive site and your captive app and everything, that's really where you want your consumers to be.
Right. Coming from that, is it fair to say that for a brand or a retailer such as SOCH, being on a marketplace is really more about the market reach, penetration, the volumes in terms of reach, and your own omni-channel model would be more about the brand and customer experience because it is much more focused. Is it a fair analysis?
Yes. There are some other benefits, of course, because when you're selling on marketplaces, you're reaching out to pockets where you don't have physical presence. And that data can be very insightful in terms of where we want to expand even brick and mortar. And you're also pegging your product against multiple other brands. And that helps you get a feel of your quality, pricing, your fashion quotient. And I think being in that healthy competitive environment is actually good for the brand.
Right. Okay. About your e-commerce site and the several other retail innovations, digital retail innovations that you're working on right now, what is the timeline? When do we see the revamped search?
So I think the first version of the site should be December or Jan. There are 3 phases to it, so it'll probably take till about next June, July to have all the modules phased out with all the features. The store app is something that, again, we're trying to put it in stores around the same time as the site comes up. So Jan, Feb is what we target. And then we'll follow that with the consumer app and a lot of the tech and really a lot of the changes in the fixturing as well. So you'll see it slowly from Jan, but I think by June, July, a lot of it will be in place.
Right. Thank you, Vinay, so much for those insights and sharing those details about what's going on at SOCH. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.